What is
Billionaire
this?
catches homeless boy painting for his blind daughter.
This is art.
What happens next will melt your heart.
He doesn't
Ethan
understand.
Cole had built an empire of glass and code. From a sleek headquarters in downtown Los Angeles, his tech company powered half the city's smart devices. Reporters called him the visionary. But behind the tall white walls of his Bel Air mansion, there lived a silence so heavy it could crush a man. His only child, 12-year-old Lily, had lost her sight 2 years earlier in a car accident that also claimed her mother's life. Once she filled the house with sketches and laughter, now her world was measured in footsteps and echoes. Ethan had spent fortunes chasing cures, from Boston to Berlin, from labs to prayer circles, but nothing brought back her light. Each afternoon, she sat in the garden facing the sunlight she could no longer see, fingers brushing over old paintbrushes like relics of another lifetime. Ethan watched from the balcony, a man who could design machines to recognize faces but couldn't fix the emptiness in his daughter's eyes. Then one hot, dry afternoon, something changed. Lily tilted her head. "Dad?" she whispered. "Do you hear that?" From beyond the garden wall came the scratch of a brush against brick, a rhythmic, whispering sound, steady and deliberate. A shadow moved near the hedge. When Ethan peered down, he saw a thin boy, barefoot and sunburned, painting the outer wall with something that shimmered in the light. Paint streaked across his hands like badges of defiance. He wasn't tagging graffiti. He was creating something beautiful out of dust and scraps. Ethan's jaw tightened. A stranger on his property? A vagrant? He turned to call security, but then he saw Lily rise slightly, smiling toward the sound. For the first time in months, she smiled. And that's where everything began to change. The sound of footsteps echoed down the marble stairs before the heavy gate buzzed open. Ethan Cole strode across the courtyard, sunlight bouncing off his tailored suit, anger tightening every step. His security detail trailed behind, but he waved them off. He wanted to handle this himself. The boy froze mid-stroke, a cracked paintbrush still pressed against the wall. His shirt hung in shreds, colors smeared across his cheeks like war paint. A small tin of mixed pigment and crushed chalk sat by his bare feet. "What do you think you're doing?" Ethan's voice hit like thunder. "This is private property." The boy flinched. I wasn't stealing, sir. I was just painting." "Painting?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You're defacing my wall." He reached for the brush, but the boy pulled it close to his chest, as if it were life itself. Lily's voice cut through the tension. "Dad, please." She stood near the garden steps, her hand resting on the railing, eyes turned toward the sound. "He's the one I heard yesterday. The one who makes the walls sing." Ethan blinked. "You know him?" "I heard him, not saw him," she said softly. "His brush makes the air move. It feels like sunlight." The boy looked at her, bewildered. "I didn't mean any harm, miss. I just wanted to make the wall beautiful, so maybe someone would notice." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Notice? You trespassed." He pulled out his phone to call security again, but stopped. The boy's trembling hands, the color-stained wall, and Lily's fragile smile tangled something inside him he couldn't quite name. "Tell me your name, kid," Ethan demanded. The boy swallowed hard. "Noah, sir. Just Noah." Ethan's thumb hovered over the phone, and for the first time in years, he hesitated. Ethan's thumb dropped from the phone screen, but the anger in his chest still pulsed. "Noah, you've got 5 minutes to explain why you're on my property before I call someone who cares less than I do." Noah's voice wavered. "I paint wherever they'll let me, or where they don't see me. I saw your wall from the alley. It was so white it hurt my eyes. I thought maybe if I colored it, the world would look a little kinder." The words hung in the heat. Lily stood perfectly still, her hand drifting toward the wall. Her fingers brushed the rough paint. Thick, uneven, gritty. "It feels alive," she murmured. "Like the colors are breathing." Ethan's throat tightened. Lily stepped back. "It's dirty." She shook her head. "No, Dad. It's warm." Noah dropped his brush. "I mix the paint with things that smell or feel different. Coffee grounds, sand, cinnamon dust. People say I'm crazy, but I thought maybe someone who can't see could still feel the picture." Ethan stared at the boy, words stuck somewhere between disbelief and awe. Behind Noah, the wall was no longer blank. Swirls of texture caught the sun, shapes rising from stone like a secret language. "Please don't be mad," Noah whispered. "I just wanted her to have something to touch that wasn't just walls." Lily smiled toward the sound of his voice. You made the colors I can't see. Ethan looked between them, the barefoot boy, the daughter who hadn't smiled in months, and felt the sharp edge of his anger dull for the first time in years. Clean yourself up, he said finally. Then we'll talk. Noah blinked. Talk about what? Ethan turned away. About what it costs to paint my wall again. Morning spread over Bel Air like gold dust. Down in the garden, workmen were already power washing the wall clean, their hoses erasing Noah's rough masterpiece stroke by stroke. He watched in silence from the gate, a backpack of worn clothes slung over one shoulder. Ethan appeared beside the fountain, coffee in hand, immaculate as ever. If you want to paint again, you'll do it here, under my supervision. I'll pay you fairly, and you'll stay off the streets. Noah's eyes narrowed. Why me? Because my daughter believes you make walls feel alive, Ethan said, a flicker of discomfort in his tone. And because I need her to smile again. Lily came out barefoot, tracing the path by memory. Noah. He hesitated. I'm here. Her face lit up. Dad said you could stay? Ethan's jaw tightened. Temporarily. The boy's stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. Pride burned hotter than hunger. I don't take charity. Then don't, Ethan replied coldly. Take a job. He nodded toward a small shed stocked with brushes and gallons of paint. Start over. Make it better. Noah looked at the blank, dripping wall, his colors dissolving into the soil. He could almost hear them begging for another chance. I'll do it, he said finally, voice low. But this time, I choose what it means. Ethan gave a curt nod and turned away. Lily reached out, fingertips brushing fresh plaster. Promise me it'll still feel like sunlight, she whispered. Noah smiled faintly. It will, Miss Lily. Maybe brighter. Behind them, the billionaire paused, watching the boy lift a brush with shaking hands. And for a moment, he wondered who was really being tested. The next few days turned the mansion's back garden into a small world of color and dust. Noah worked from dawn until the heat shimmered above the grass. He mixed paint with sand, flower petals, even crushed leaves from the lemon trees, anything that gave the surface a texture Lily could trace. Lily came out each afternoon with a sun hat and a small radio. She would sit close enough to hear the brush move, tilting her head as though the rhythm itself told a story. Tell me what you're painting today, she said one morning. A sunrise, Noah answered. But not the kind you see. The kind you feel, rough at first, then smooth, then warm. She touched the fresh plaster. It feels like music. From the balcony above, Ethan watched the strange partnership unfold. He wanted to believe it was helping her, yet the sight of the barefoot boy inside his gates still unsettled him. His business calls dragged. He caught himself listening for the tap of Noah's brush instead of the ping of email alerts. That evening, as the lights softened over the city, Ethan came down to the garden. The wall had transformed again, patterns of raised paint and fragrant herbs forming something wild and graceful. Why do you work so hard for nothing? Ethan asked quietly. Noah didn't look up. It's not for nothing, sir. It's for her. The billionaire's voice lowered. You could have sold those hands to a gallery. Instead, you waste them on a wall she can't even see. Noah smiled. Maybe sight's overrated. Lily laughed softly, the sound drifting like wind chimes. Ethan stood still, the boy's words echoing in his head long after the laughter faded. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. One morning, Lily didn't wait for her nanny or her father. She made her way down the long marble hallway alone, her cane tapping softly, her other hand grazing the wall for guidance. The scent of paint and lemon blossoms grew stronger as she neared the garden. Noah, she called. He turned, startled, his shirt spattered with paint, a streak of blue on his cheek. You came early. I wanted to feel it before the sun gets too hot, she said. Tell me what you added. Noah guided her hand to the wall. Right here, I painted the sound of birds. Small brushstrokes, like their wings. And here, he placed her fingers on a swirling pattern, is what I think the wind feels like. Lily's lips trembled. It's like you're showing me the world I lost. Her words struck something deep in Noah. Maybe you didn't lose it, he said softly. Maybe it's just hiding in another way. From the open doorway, Ethan watched silently. His daughter's face was glowing, her eyes closed but alive. For months, he had filled her world with silence. Expensive doctors, endless pity, sterile therapy rooms. Yet this homeless boy had brought her a universe she could touch. That night, Ethan called his assistant. Find out who this boy is, he said. Everything. Where he came from, who he belongs to. By morning, the report lay on his desk. No known parents. Foster homes, all failed. Homeless since age 9. Arrested twice for trespassing while painting on public walls. Ethan read the file twice, then stared out the window toward the garden. The boy who had been branded a nuisance was the only person who had brought light back into his daughter's darkness. And that realization began to change everything. That evening, thunder rolled over the city, heavy and distant. The scent of rain drifted through the open doors of the mansion. Lily was inside, tracing her fingers across one of Noah's textured boards that he'd brought in to dry. Outside, Noah stood beneath the half-finished mural, trying to protect his paints from the wind. The sky cracked open, and rain splashed down, running over the paint in streaks of color. Ethan watched from the veranda, conflicted. He admired the boy's stubbornness, but a part of him still whispered that Noah didn't belong here. Come inside, he called. You'll ruin it. Noah didn't stop. It's not ruined, he shouted over the rain. It's alive. The storm intensified. Water streamed down his arms, washing trails of red and blue over the concrete. He stepped back and smiled through the downpour. Now she'll be able to feel the rain in the wall, he said to himself. Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't know whether to be angry or moved. By the time Noah finally came inside, drenched and shivering, the floor around him was a puddle. Lily heard his steps and rushed forward. Noah, are you okay? He laughed breathlessly. Yeah, the painting's better now. The rain helped. Ethan wrapped a towel around him despite himself. You could have been struck by lightning, kid. You think my daughter needs a mural or a martyr? Noah looked up, his eyes clear. I think she needs someone who believes in what she can't see. The room fell silent except for the patter of rain on glass. Ethan opened his mouth to reply, but Lily beat him to it. He's right, Dad. He sees more than most people who can actually see. Ethan looked between them, and for the first time, he felt small. The next morning dawned calm, washed clean by the storm. The air smelled of wet earth and lemon blossoms. Noah stood before the mural, his shirt still damp, his eyes tired but full of wonder. The wall had transformed overnight. Rain had blended the colors into flowing textures that shimmered under sunlight. It was no longer a painting. It was a landscape you could feel. Lily came out, guided by the sound of Noah's voice. It smells different today, she said, smiling faintly. It's the rain, Noah answered. It finished what I started. He took her hand gently and placed it on the wall. Her fingers brushed over grooves and ridges, her touch moving from smooth arcs to raised swirls. She gasped. It feels like light, she whispered. Like sunlight breaking through clouds. Ethan had come down quietly, stopping behind them. His breath caught. He hadn't seen his daughter this alive since before the accident. Her face was turned toward the mural, her lips trembling with awe. Then, something happened that made him step forward in disbelief. Lily's eyes fluttered open, not fully, but a flicker of movement. Her hand tightened around Noah's. I can see something, she breathed. Not clearly, but light. I can see light. Noah froze, afraid to speak. Ethan rushed to her side, voice trembling. Sweetheart, what did you say? There's light, she whispered again, tears spilling down her cheeks. I can see light. The three of them stood there, silent, shaking, overwhelmed, as morning sun poured through the clouds and bathed the mural in gold. No doctor, no therapy, no surgery had done it. But a homeless boy with paint-stained hands had just brought light back into a world of darkness. Ethan's world would never be the same again. The news spread before Ethan could stop it. One of the staff had seen the moment, recorded it, and shared it online. By noon, a video titled, Blind Girl Sees Light After Homeless Boy Paints Her World, had already reached 500,000 views. Journalists gathered outside the mansion gates. Cars lined the street. Drones hovered above the driveway like curious birds. Inside, chaos brewed. Ethan's phone buzzed nonstop. Investors, business partners, even old friends calling with questions that sounded more like accusations. What's going on over there, Ethan? Who is this street kid? You're letting a homeless boy live in your house now? What if this backfires? You're trending for the wrong reasons, Lawson. You've got to control the narrative. But Ethan didn't care about narratives anymore. He cared about the sound of his daughter's laughter echoing through the halls. About the way she reached for color she couldn't yet fully see. About the boy who had done the impossible. Still, Pressure mounted. That evening, his board of directors demanded a private meeting. "Ethan, your image is everything," one of them said sharply. "You can't keep him here. Send the boy away quietly. Donate to a charity. Clean it up." Ethan stared at the polished table. His reflection looked cold and tired, like a man who had built a world out of money but forgotten what love looked like. When he returned home that night, Lily was asleep, her hand resting on the mural. Noah sat nearby, sketching in a small, worn notebook. "You know they want me gone," Noah said without looking up. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I know. What are you going to do?" Ethan looked at his daughter, then back at the boy. "Something I should have done a long time ago." Outside, the city lights shimmered like 1,000 promises waiting to be kept. The next morning, sunlight poured through the tall windows of the Lawson mansion, painting golden streaks across the marble floors. Ethan stood by the garden doors, looking out at the mural, the one that had started it all. The wall glowed in the morning light, rippling with color and texture, alive like the heart of the home. Behind him, voices echoed from the hall. His board members had arrived uninvited, dressed sharp, their expressions tighter than their suits. "Ethan," the eldest began, "we've reviewed the situation. Your company's reputation is on the line. This boy's story makes you look unstable, emotional. You need to remove him, today." Lily appeared at the doorway, her hand resting lightly on the frame. She had walked there on her own. "You can't," she said softly. "He's the reason I can see light again." The room went still. Noah stood behind her, barefoot as always, holding his paint-stained notebook against his chest. His eyes flickered between them, fear and hope warring silently. Ethan turned to face the board. "You see a homeless boy," he said, his voice low but steady. "But I see the person who healed what all my money couldn't." "This isn't about healing," one of them snapped. "It's about control." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then I'm done being controlled." He took a step toward Noah. "You're not leaving, son. Not ever again." Lily gasped softly, her lips trembling. "Dad, what are you saying?" Ethan looked at her, eyes shining. "I'm saying he's family now." The board erupted in protest, but Ethan didn't hear them. He was already kneeling beside Noah, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "You gave my daughter back her light," he whispered. "Now let me give you something in return, a home." Tears welled in Noah's eyes, spilling over his cheeks. For the first time, he didn't wipe them away. Months later, the mansion no longer felt like a fortress. It was a place of laughter, of paint and music and sunlight. Lily's vision continued to improve.